Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about the reverse hyper. And this is something that I've tended to be a big fan of. I've had one for years, something I promoted. I feel like it was a valuable tool in getting my deadlift to 600 plus. And it's one of those tools that I convince lots of my clients to get. Over the years, I've convinced at least a dozen clients to buy a reverse hyper, and particularly my guys over 35. And it's usually something I tell my lifters: if you are over 35 and you want to be strong and healthy and fit and athletic, you need this device. You need this device. And I'm not really the only person out here pimping it. I would say Louis Simmons had said after he invented it and got on some stuff that Joe Rogan probably sold more of these than anyone else for him. Because he had tried it out and loved it. And here's the thing with the reverse hyper. I feel like this is one of the best tools for building the conventional deadlift. And I'm not saying it doesn't carry over to a lot of things. It doesn't carry over to other sports, things like that, because it clearly does. Right? It carries over to a lot of other things. Anything where you need hip extension, anything where you need lower back health. Like you guys have even seen, client Nick, who's a marathon runner, who used marathons to lose 200 pounds of body weight, has one of these, and it will help keep his back healthy and his hip extensors healthy and everything while he's running marathons. So we need to understand what's unique about this device is that if you notice, it moves you through a hip hinge, and it does it very similar to what you do on a conventional deadlift. But the thing is, when it's been looked at in terms of just low back activation, at least one EMG study looked at this comparing it to a normal hyperextension, and it found that it put less stress on the actual back, certain parts of the lumbar, while actually activating more muscle, at least on an EMG. And I'm not saying that EMGs are the be all end all, because they aren't, and I'm always very clear on that point when discussing them, that we can't treat them that way. But the fact of the matter is, the studies that have looked at it have found that it's probably a better overall device for the low back, and it doesn't even make the hyperextension useless. I have a 45-degree bench. Haven't been using it that much always, but I have one. But the thing is with the reverse hyper is that it puts your back into traction, and what it does is that when you get to the bottom, it pulls on your low back. Okay, it has a restorative effect. And this is something, that we note in training, is that for a lot of lifters, I like to do some axial loading stuff. A lot of my guys running basic stuff, we like to use a lot of squatting and deadlifting and all that. And even my guys who run 5-3-1 type programming. We have whole days dedicated to the squat, the deadlift, the overhead press, right? But here's the thing with those. They put a tremendous amount of axial loading on the body that impacts recovery negatively. And this is one reason for muscle building purposes. Sometimes people don't always like some of these exercises. It's not because they're not brutally effective. It's that the concern is how much total volume can you do and still recover from it, right? And it has to do with a compressive stress on the back. And, there's some indication that can impede overall recovery in the body. And get to overreaching quicker, overtraining quicker. But training with things that put your back in traction may do the opposite, because there's a restorative effect on the low back. So if you're going to deadlift really heavy every week or squat really heavy every week, movements that put you in traction are tremendously beneficial for the recovery. And this has been noted. We can handle a lot more training volumes then. Well, a lot of times when we think of those things, what do we think of? Body weight exercises, whether it's a hanging leg raise, a pull up, a dip, all of these movements, right? They put you into traction. These are good things. We like to see this. Okay, movements that put us into traction, pull on the spine, may help with a restorative effect. They tend to be easy on recovery overall because of this. Not always at the local level, but overall. Well, the reverse hyper pulls you into traction, and it pulls on the lower back. It pulls it down. It's like people do inversion tables and hangs and stuff sometimes for that. Well, this actively does it. So it pulls downward on your spine at the bottom, and it pulls it into traction and pulls it apart. Okay, this is phenomenal for recovery. And that's what it was used for by Louis Simmons, was to rehab his lower back after breaking it. And he went on to deadlift over 700 pounds with a broken back after inventing this device and patenting it to use that. And it's arguably his possibly his biggest contribution overall to the sports and training world. We could argue about all his other ones. This one's big. This one's really big. And you can't do this without the device. People try to set up ways to do it with other ways. It doesn't work because there's a lot of weight that we can load on this. I think in these here I'm doing 400 pounds for work sets. And I'm trying to get a lot stronger. By the time this video's out, hopefully I'll be a lot stronger. But, that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing. Again, it's a very, very powerful tool. Very powerful tool for this. So, why use it the way that I do? Well, in my case, what I've been doing lately, or at least at the time of this video, is I do extremely large amounts of volume on it. This is my primary hip extension movement, my primary hip hinge movement, because it works all the hip hinge muscles. It does so in a way that is restorative, easy to recover from. At the time this video was made, I was doing 10 sets twice a week. It's 20 sets a week, and a lot of people like to do these on off days for high volumes, with really high reps and high volume for restoration in between main workouts. Okay, in between main workouts. Now, I haven't necessarily been doing that, but I certainly could if I wanted to. But I'm trying to get stronger and stronger and stronger on it while doing 10 sets with progressive overload. Well, the thing is, this is an exercise that you can do 20 sets a week on without feeling overtrained. You recover from it quickly because it's restorative. So if we're thinking in terms of, stimulus fatigue, this is our issue with volume. Volume always has a larger hypertrophic effect, but it's a rapid diminished return because with every set we do, we start to cause more damage. We have to recover from it. When we take movements like this that are restorative, we can handle very large amounts of volumes on it without feeling beat up, without feeling overtrained. So what does that mean from a hypertrophy perspective? Well, it means all the muscles involved, particularly, again, like the low back, the glutes, the hamstrings, but particularly the glutes, because this thing, even on EMG stuff, it lights the glutes up. The glutes and the erectors. We can develop them very, very quickly because it's large amounts of training volume and tension that we can recover from. All right, this is massively beneficial. Massively beneficial to building a big deadlift, to having a more stable squat, to being able to keep your chest from caving and a squat turning into a good morning squat, things like that. All right, it's a very valuable tool. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.